Welcome to episode 58.
Brene Brown. Join us as we dive into the world of Brene Brown's books and how they intersect with our magical practices.
Things like cultivating authenticity,
self-compassion,
play and rest,
creativity,
intuition and trusting faith,
laughter, song, silliness,
and letting go of self-doubt.
Oof. Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. Welcome to the Witchy Wit podcast, where we look at life through a witchy lens. I'm Kimberlyn.
I'm Leilani.
At Witchy Wit, we explore current events,
ideas,
music and books,
and experiences in ways that recognize energy and life in everybody and everything.
We are both real witches.
And we bring two real perspectives through the lens of our different ages,
races,
and backgrounds.
With a healthy skepticism for what we have been told is true, our conversations are raw, candid, and vulnerable.
Join us as we cast a spell to uncover what we each know is true in our intuitive, witchy selves.
Hello, and welcome to episode 58.
Brene Brown.
Yay. And before we hop into Brene Brown, let's see what's going on.
I would love to do that.
Okay.
Would you like to start the check-in?
I would love to start the check-in. I am music directing a play. It's a play with music. It's not a musical, but it's a local theater company, and it's incredible. The actors are incredible. They're really good at delving into the meaning of the song and really portraying that. And as I mentioned earlier, my intention for the year was to make something every day, music or art or something to be creative. And so sitting at the piano yesterday, in between two of the songs, there was acting going on stage, and the women were talking, and I was just sitting, and I just looked around, and I was thinking, oh, this is really nice. Seeing the band there, the drummer is incredible, and she kind of rocks out. So it's so wonderful to see her, and the bass player is like super sharp. Where if the singers jump, she's right there. I mean, it's just amazing. She has a really good ear. And then there's a moment where one of the actresses sings a cappella, "His Eye is on the Sparrow," which is a song that really is kind of embedded in a lot of people's experience growing up in a Black church. And it actually I had just read something about this in Brene Brown, where her daughter, they had gone out in a park, and her daughter was closing her eyes and just sitting there, and she said, I'm taking a picture of this moment. And I just looked around, and I was thinking, oh, I'm going to take a picture of this moment, or a sensation picture of this moment of, hearing the music, seeing these wonderful musicians and actors, and I'm working with them, and I'm getting paid to do that. And I realized that is kind of, that's like the essence of me. That's, sitting, collaborating with other musicians on a project that we're really super engaged with. It was a reminder. It wasn't a peak experience. It was a reminder that all of these experiences are essentially me, or essentially the life that I want to live. And I'm getting paid to do it. That's the icing on the cake is that I'm getting paid to do something that is so me. And it's kind of like, it's not necessarily my mission in life to bring theater to everyone, but it's to make music. And so that was just a wondrous moment of just really being present in how miraculous and magical my life is, if I just remember that. So check.
Wow. I love that you said it's not a peak experience, because I don't want that to be a peak experience. I want that to be a very common experience, not any less magical or wonderful for you, but like something that you see a lot in your life.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah. So what about you?
Okay. So this is a similar experience.
Oh, okay. Yay. Good.
Like our check-ins are somewhat similar. So I'm actually going to show you a video. So yesterday at Acro, so so my listeners know I do partner acrobatics, and I train partner acrobatics on the weekends a lot. I have like a small training group, and my partner and I. So this happened. So I'll narrate. So we jump up into a hand-to-hand. So I'm doing a handstand on his hands.
Oh my God!
So like what I want to so the skill was, it's called a courbette. So the skill is I'm doing a handstand on my partner's hands, and then he throws me upward, and I flip around, and I land in my feet in my partner's hands.
So I just want to make sure everyone's really clear about this. He's standing with his hands above his head, and in his hands are your hands, where you're in a handstand.
Yes.
So I will make sure everyone's clear about that. Okay. And then
he throws me upward, and then I change my shape, and I land with my feet in his hands. So I'm standing above him while he's standing. And you do
that in the air.
I do that in the air. Yes.
So
our listeners can't see it, but so imagine, so this was the first time we ever did it out of lines. So the lines are like this spotting belt that I wear, and the lines go up to the ceiling, and someone's holding these ropes so that if I fall, which I've done a billion times because we're learning the skill, they pull the lines, and then I'm kept from falling to the ground.
Exactly.
From injury. So this is our first time taking it out of lines. And so what our listeners, you may have heard people like yelling and cheering afterwards, but there's like 6 people standing around my partner and I, and they're standing there, and their arms are up in the air because they're
your spotters.
They're spotters, right? And they're ready to, like we had discussed beforehand, like if these are the likely ways that I fall, if that happens, this is what each person is like talking about what they're going to do. And so these are people that I've known and worked with for years, so I like really trust them. But anyways, I posted that video on social media, and one of our dear friends, Zan, who has been on the show. So if you're interested in hearing more about him, there's an episode all about him. So your listeners, you can go back and find his episode. But he messaged me, and he was like, "It looks like you're doing ritual." Because they're all standing around me with their arms up.
Oh,
you know?
Right, yes.
And I felt so seen, because I feel like that's what it is to me. This like movement. I had this moment, not then, because right then I was very scared. And then after it happened, I was really in shock because I didn't believe that I would ever actually do this skill outside of we've been working on this skill for like 3 years. Just so like this is like a long time thing, and I didn't think we were going to get it anytime soon. Like I thought maybe it was a goal to get it this year. It's actually a goal to get it last year, but that didn't happen. And that's okay.
It's okay.
But like whenever I'm doing things like that, I have these moments where I'm just like, I'm so lucky to be a part of a group of people creating this thing. And it doesn't matter if I'm flying, I base a little bit, but not very much, or I'm spotting, or I'm coaching, or I'm pulling lines, or just cheering. It doesn't matter. But like, there are these moments where I just feel this sense of gratitude to be a part of something, creating something.
Right.
And I just feel so grateful for it. And then there are moments where something like that happens, where I get to be the one that experiences the success in that unique way. But like a couple days ago, I had one of the members of the training group, she did a really great handstand, and I started to cry because I was just so freaking happy, and I know the struggle she's been through. So I'm just grateful to have those moments where I feel this sacred connection and the sacred creation.
And I so see, because with the spotters, they're standing there, they're participating in it in a certain level. I mean, they're not doing the trick, the stunt, the skill, but they are sending the energy, and they have to kind of mentally go through it so that they can be prepared to catch you if something goes awry.
Absolutely.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's not a passive thing. It's like very active.
Yeah, very active. And
in a lot of ways, spotting is harder than the skill itself because you never know what's going to happen, and then your response. Yeah. Anyways, it's very, very big.
Yeah. And it's amazing that you're talking about this, because it really does kind of dovetail with what I was saying about this collaboration, and even with there's so when I mentioned the woman singing His Eyes on the Sparrow, the band laughs at me because I can't watch her because I start crying.
Mm-hmm.
So I look over to make sure everything's okay because, I've just introed her in, and then make sure everything's okay, and then I let it go, and I look over just because it's kind of my job to make sure, I know what's going on, and then I have to look away. I have to look at my music, and yesterday, because I was so filled with all of that, even just looking at my music didn't stop me from tearing up. But again, it reminds me so much of what you were saying about that collaboration. But even when you're not the one starring at that moment,
mm-hmm.
that you're still a part of that energy, and it is an energy. It
mm-hmm.
is an energy. That's amazing,
and I'm so grateful.
And it's fucking phenomenal. I mean, that is such an amazing skill, an amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. It just feels. I'm just really swimming in the deliciousness of like the fact that I get to be a part of a group that creates,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
and I don't want that to be a peak experience. I want that to be something that happens, whether I'm the spotter or whether I'm cheering someone on for getting a skill that they've been working on, or I'm the one that gets the skill. Like whatever it is, I'm so grateful to be a part of a creative process.
Oh, right, totally. Of people who are really striving just as you were striving, so they can relate to what, to your ups and your downs, mm-hmm. right? Yeah.
That's a pun.
All right. Thank you for pointing out that.
I just want to point out, too, that we did not plan our check-in.
I know, this is amazing. Because great minds and great energies,
mm-hmm.
yeah. And great self-awareness, which, I mean, I don't know if I would have had as much awareness of that moment
mm-hmm.
if I hadn't been reviewing the books that I'd read in the past of Brene Brown. So it's kind of, it's serendipitous in a way, but mm-hmm. it's also kind of inevitable because her, as you'll find out from our discussion, her work is just so life-changing and enlightening that these type of things would happen, I would imagine, to a lot of people if they're reading mm-hmm. or listening or whatever to her stuff.
So I think we'll be talking about Brene Brown today, like who she is, the type of work that she does, our favorite things from that work, our learnings from that work, and then how that work ties into our witchy practice.
Yeah. Shall we get started?
I'm so pumped about this.
So I'm going to say mine first.
Okay.
Because this is, so let me just preface this, and maybe we could talk about this first. When did we first,
mm-hmm.
So our first contact. So I think my first was, I think she had a blog. I think I'd read some of her blogs or some. I knew of her before I read Daring Greatly.
Mm.
And so that was pretty much, I think it was maybe 2012 or I can't remember exactly when it was, but it was in the teens, and it was pretty soon after the book came out. And it was really, it had a great deal of impact on me, and it allowed me to think about a lot of things. And then about 4 or 5 years ago, I read, or maybe less, Braving
the Wilderness.
Yeah, and as an Enneagram 2 with a 3-wing, we'll talk about it, but it's all about truly belonging as opposed to just trying to fit in, and it really spoke to me. I mean, it just like exploded my head. Okay, now having said that, and I'm going to give you a chance to say yours, I reread them because I couldn't remember which books. There's so many, and I know you're such a fan's not the right word, but devotee. A devotee.
A devotee is really, it feels accurate.
Okay.
That lands on the spot.
Yeah. So I knew that you were going to bring in tons of stuff. So this is kind of like our planes of existence episode where you were kind of just going to ride the energy mm-hmm. and let me just go where I need to go. Well, I said last week, oh yeah, we need to get an outline started, and then I think you texted, oh, I started one, it's up there, and I looked and I think that was already 2 pages.
The dissertation on Brene Brown.
So it's like, okay, then so I added my little, stuff here and there. But what I wanted to do was reread the books so I listened to them. I got the audiobooks, so, walking the dog, cleaning the toilet, just to refresh my memory about, what was it about them that was so impactful. And I hadn't noticed this the first time because it was basically I was telling Leilani that I was going through some pain. So when I was reading her books, it was just basically heal me, tell me how to heal myself, and
help me get out of this hole.
Exactly. So I wasn't like it wasn't a real nuanced reading. But this time it was I could sit back a little bit and I remember that. Oh, I'd forgotten that, and I could really pay a little bit more attention, and that's when I noticed. One of the reasons that I know Leilani loves Brene Brown is sister has research, and her research provides a great deal of data.
That is sexy. It's sexy.
Give
me the numbers.
I was howling because she'd say blah 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 this profound thing, and she said, and research shows. I was like, oh yeah,
say it. Say it slower.
The research shows. Yeah, I was just picturing you reading the, like turning the pages, like some pages like didn't really open. I don't know why, But I was like, okay, because I'd forgotten that, and really, really well researched. She actually has her methodology in the back, and her methodology and footnotes.
Give me them footnotes. Put them notes by my feet.
So I, as I was listening to this, I was just howling every moment because I said, "Oh yeah, Brene got her at data."
She did. I love feelings and I love numbers, and so now I like numbers about feelings, and that's all her stuff is, just numbers about feeling.
She's done research. She's just not like pulling it out of her ass like we do. Right. She has research. She has facts. She has surveys. She has studies. So yeah, and she's super, super smart. And so she knows how anybody can do it. I mean, not anybody can do research, but you have to be able to interpret the results, to make sense of the results. Not interpret sounds, it's not, but interpret often sounds a little wishy, like you might be cooking the books. But she is super smart at figuring out what those numbers mean. So I think we were talking about how did we meet?
Yes.
How did we first...
I would love to meet her.
Okay, yeah, well, how did we first interact with Brene Brown?
My first interaction is her TED Talk that went viral.
Okay.
That
maybe that's what I'm thinking. Yeah.
And it was really, and I've something that I haven't shared a lot with our listeners is I have been working at a summer camp that is based on personal growth. And I've been working at that summer camp since I was 18 years old. So, like around 2022 is when I started there, and it's been really impactful in my life. And then I also did an adult version of that summer camp that's about personal growth, and I did that like very heavily for a very long time. And I'm still connected to that. I'm still connected to both organizations. And so because of that, I think I was primed and ready for this type of stuff. And I find it really interesting. And that's kind of, those experiences in my life set me up to want to be continually growing. And so that TED Talk video like got passed around my circles of friends from these communities and blew my mind.
Yeah.
Apparently blew her mind as well. She did not know she was going to go viral.
Yes. Well, in Daring, I think it's Daring Greatly, she talks about one of the books, one of those two. It's only two because those are the only ones I read last week. But she talks about how we'll talk about vulnerability and the vulnerability drop. No, what's
hangover?
Hangover.
That, yeah.
In terms of that, but she was really having issues about that. She really didn't want it to be viewed, and no one listened to her. Thank God. So let's go on. I think it might be easier. Why don't we just give a little bit of background for people who may not know who Brene Brown is? No judgment.
Okay. My desire is that everyone meets her work. So I'll start out with who she is.
Yeah, please.
So she is a research professor at the University of Houston, and she spent over 2 decades studying courage, vulnerability, shame, and empathy. So she oftentimes leads with she does shame research, which normally gets people's juices going in a negative way. Not only do people not want to think about shame, but they don't want to think about their shame being researched.
Exactly.
So she actually had a lot of hurdles early on in her career where people were like, you're never going to get anywhere. No one's going to want to talk to you, and no one's going to want to read about shame. So you should just stop now. And thank goodness she didn't.
Oh my gosh, thank goodness. Yeah.
I think she is a general badass. And I also just want to point out that she is in Houston. So she does show that there is good things in Texas. So,
and she often talks about doing stuff in San Antonio.
San Antonio, yes. Yep. And she summers at Lake LBJ. So, like, I have thought about, like, if I just walk around Lake LBJ for an entire summer, maybe I'll run into her. I don't know.
Yeah, that's such a fangirl.
Right?
But I've been there. I've lived in that town, so I get you. Yeah. Oh,
I didn't even know. Who are you? I don't even know who you are. I was just thinking about shame. Oh, Brene. I'm Leilani. What a coincidence. Oh, you work with shame? I had no idea.
Yeah, nice try. Yes. So your first experience was the TED Talk, and it might be simpler to actually say the books of hers that you haven't read. But do you remember? So you saw the TED Talk, and what did you do after that? This TED Talk is fabulous.
Yes. So the TED Talk is available on YouTube, or you could just Google Brene Brown TED Talk, and it'll pop right up. But then my first book was Daring Greatly. I believe I've read all of her books. But I don't have a comprehensive list that I've like checked off. But I currently am about 90% done with her newest what one. I believe is her newest book, which is Atlas of the Heart.
Yes.
And I'm like 90% done with that. So, but I would have to say Daring Greatly is the book that I go back to and I reference all the time.
Like a little Bible?
Yes.
Little Biblet?
Like a little biblet.
Oh my gosh.
A little book of shadows.
Yeah, there you go. But it's so funny because I read it. So let's figure out, when did that come out? Do you know?
I can tell you.
Okay. So I know I read it within a couple of years of it coming out, and it came out in 2012. And I just remember feeling so seen, feeling, wow, that's the way I am. That's why I'm the way I am. And just first of all, the beauty of her writing, the beauty of the way she presents things, but also that it's so real. I mean, she just she talks about sharing and how not to overshare but it's backed up by data. It's backed up by her by her experience, and it resonates when I hear that. It's a moment of, oh, that explains that in my life or whatever, and I found that was the part that was just so earth-shattering for me. Was that it was so simple. There was not a whole, she doesn't throw about a whole lot of psychological terms or whatever, and it's heartfelt and it's true for me.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's true because it's based on research.
There's data.
And data.
There are numbers to support, and exactly. I mean, it's not just her thinking that this is the case and talking to her friends and then writing a book. It's her doing research and talking to a shit ton of people and coming up with conclusions and then sitting down and writing her book, right? Oh my gosh. And it was I was going through a period at that time where I was trying to decide if I had a lot of leadership positions, and I'm a teacher. So teaching is leadership, no matter how you slice it or dice it. I mean, it really is leadership. And so I had been thinking about the most effective ways and having a lot of doubts, and do I really want to do this? Is, all of this kind of stuff. And that book landed right at the right moment for me to start thinking through, the reasons I do what I did. And I didn't change dramatically what I did. I changed dramatically how I thought about what I was doing and being more intentional about it. Maybe changing some things, but really being intentional about it. So what was your, there was the TED Talk, and then after that, Daring Greatly?
Daring Greatly rocked my world. And then The Gifts of Imperfection. as Brene Brown calls herself, a recovering people pleaser. So am I. Both of those books landed really with me. Those are my favorite. Daring Greatly and then The Gifts of Imperfection are the two I go back to over and over and over again. But for me, the idea of shame and vulnerability and empathy. So those are things that as a human, as part of me being human, I'm going to experience shame. As a part of being human, I'm going to experience vulnerability. And as a part of being human, I'm going to be in community and hopefully experience empathy. These are all things I hopefully will experience, even if they're hard. But the idea is that because I live in a world where I'm not alone, it's not Castaway and I'm stuck on an island with a volleyball, right?
Yeah.
So because of that, this is like a guidebook for how I want to navigate my imperfection, because I'm a human, in community, within myself and between people that I care for. So if I'm going to be a professional and work in a school, which I do, these are tools that I want. If I'm going to be a priestess and navigate a circle, these are the tools that I want. If I'm going to be a witch and be priestess too, these are tools that I want. So whenever I read these books, for me, it's about, I want to show up as me. And these are tools that help me strip away all this stuff that has either been put on me or I've put on myself as a way to survive. And I just cannot believe that this is the work that is only now coming out, this is essential work.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Yeah. Well, and so here's the thing. I agree that why is it only coming out now? Well, part of it is because no one would have listened to, she would have been a crackpot, if she had written this 40 years ago.
She probably would have been burned at the stake
she had written
a couple hundred years ago.
Yes, exactly.
She's like, ye old church service, let us, she is Christian, by the way, let us gather at church and listen to Goody Brown. I think we should talk about shame. Burn her at the stake.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. And so, but what I love so much about her work is she delves into all of these things and explains why we do these things. But as you noted, she gives us tools for dealing with, not just giving us the information, which is great.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because wow, that's why I do this. Right. So it's good having that self-knowledge. But then she actually gives you the ways to think about what you're doing so that you could do something else should you choose to do that, right? And that's what I one of the things I really loved about the books that I read.
I love it. I love her so much.
Yeah, yes. So let's talk a little bit about some of the, we mentioned the impact on us individually, but how does that kind of resonate with some of the work that we do magically as a witch? You want to start, or I can? Actually, you start.
Okay.
You've got a lot to say.
So my number one thing, when we dive into her individual works in a little bit, I'm sure we'll come back to this. But my number one thing is, for me as a witch, I think that we focus on our shadow a lot. The shadow is an important part of my practice, and something I see in our circle is we do a lot of work with darkness, the dark time of the year. So we honor the light time of the year, we honor the dark time of the year. We don't honor the light time of the year and then sit around and wait for the light time to come back. We do the work in both sides. And I think with her work focusing on shame and vulnerability, that she is diving into these shadow topics. And what I see in my own personal practice is I want to do that deep work, and she becomes a sort of guide for me as I navigate the dark time of the year and the dark time within me.
Yeah, and I think, and I know our circle is really super down with working with our shadow, and not every circle or coven does, but I would say that a lot of witchy practices tend tend to focus on balance. So the light and the dark. So if you're going to work on the light, you know, you're going to work in the dark. So, and again, just painting with a super broad brush and not saying that this is true for everyone. We do that. The world does not, as a rule, deal with that. The world tends to cover that up. So in a way, she reflects our witchy practice, and maybe that of others as well, not, you know, trying to eye reference as much as possible. But she does it in a way that will help other people who don't do all the magical stuff that we do, who can help them kind of come to a little bit of balance should they choose to follow some of her suggestions, right? Mm-hmm. And making the world just a witchier place. Right?
Yeah.
Because vulnerability, shame is, you know, shame is so can be such a part of shadow, right? And which is why you keep it hidden, because of the shame. And so by delving into that, by maybe, I don't want to say casting light on it, but really, you know, diving deeply into it and bringing yourself awareness of it, you're really doing a lot of what I would consider magical spiritual work. Mm-hmm. And she kind of uses that term. She does say sacred work and things like that. But I really don't want to make any sort of implications, because, as you say, she is a devout Christian, mm-hmm. and so I really don't want to, you know, impose any of our thinking on mm-hmm. her work. And having said that, her work does resonate with what we do.
I kind of think she'd think we were cool. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think so. Mm-hmm. I think so. I choose to believe that.
I think so. And she also embraces paradox, right? Mm-hmm. That's one of the things that I think that's more in her in Braving the Wilderness, because of that idea of who are you, essentially. But again, it's balance. It's mm-hmm. about, you know, figuring out what's the good, what's the bad, and embracing it all. Mm-hmm. You know, not necessarily not lauding it and saying, okay, well, I'm just a shitty person half the time, and I'm gonna celebrate that. But accepting it and understanding that it's a part of you, and then what are you going to do with it now that you know that that's a part of you? Yeah,
and that like you just said, that to me that's alchemy. That mm-hmm. is a witchy mm-hmm. practice mm-hmm. where I take these parts of me, these beliefs that I have, these practices that I do, and I, as a witch, for me, and this can go back to our witchy ethics mm-hmm. episodes, but for me, it's my responsibility. I have no one to blame. I can't say, insert deity name here, heal me, and I'm good, you know, or mm-hmm. I'll pray it away. Absolutely not. Mm-hmm. Like the work is for me to do, and that is my sacred work, and mm-hmm. that is my sacred responsibility and part of my sacred practice. And so her research and her books give me those tools, these sacred tools for me to do my personal work, mm-hmm. so that I can bring my truest self to the world, to myself, to our circle, to our magical practice.
I love the term you used, alchemy, because I remember, I think this is in Braving the Wilderness, she talks about she talks about conflict resolution, but she calls it conflict transformation.
Well, I love that.
You know, that idea that, because sometimes things aren't resolved. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you don't get we can talk about this, and you don't get what you want, which is for me to, I don't know, you know, worship you or whatever.
I'm remembering. I'm mm-hmm. like right now I'm thinking of that in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah,
mm-hmm.
sometimes it doesn't.
It doesn't. But
it doesn't resolve.
It doesn't resolve. But you can transform that conflict into better understanding. You can mm-hmm. into a deeper relationship with someone who you're going to fundamentally disagree with on certain things. Mm-hmm. And then how do you negotiate that? How do you move past it? And often, if you do this work, you move past it in such a way that it actually strengthens the bond as opposed to separating it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, I can't remember why we started talking about this, but anyway.
As a witchy practice.
Oh, yeah, witchy practice. Yeah, yes. The alchemical aspect of this.
And I think another part for me that she really brings to light is oftentimes I'm driven by these forces or these things that I don't even realize. These things that have happened to me, or these beliefs that I've created because of experiences that I've had. But it's almost like I'm steering a boat, but below that deck, there's actually like 17 other people steering the boat. You know, and I'm like, you know, and I'm just like, I'm steering the boat, you know, and really they're down there, they're like, nah, girl, no, you're not, you know, and they're steering it. Mm-hmm. And And sometimes they go where I think, and then sometimes I'm like, how did I get here? I don't even realize why I'm here. Why am I so triggered by this? And I think she helps to shine the light on that, so that like one of the most powerful things I learned in ritual space is that intent and impact are different things.
Oh yes.
And my intent does not free me from my impact. You know, and a lot of times in a lot of my early adult years, I would feel like intent freed me from my impact. Well, that's not what I meant. Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for that to happen. Oh, when I said that, I meant this, and I didn't. You know, and what I learned in one of our spiritual communities that you and I have been in together is that I have to take responsibility. I don't have to. I choose to take responsibility for my impact, because that's a big part of how I navigate as a human.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so taking responsibility for my impact, regardless of my intent. Now, I want to have a clear intent, but I also need to be aware. I'm going to choose to be aware of these things that drive me, those 17 people on the underdeck, right? Yeah, like I want to know why they're doing what they're doing. There's parts of me, so that I can be more skillful with my impact.
Yeah. So you can, I don't want to say make it closer, but you can, your intent can result in a product that looks as close to what you would like to happen as possible. Yeah. But that's self-knowledge. So I there's another practice that I do, and one of the things I do is you're doing a lot of clearing and releasing of beliefs, behaviors, fears, and habits. Because if you can, those are the things that block so much of growth and development, and they're so unwitting. You don't even, if you're not aware, if you're not not constantly, but if you're not trying to delve into why like you say, why am I triggered? Why did I do that? Those things it doesn't matter what you want, because they're very, very powerful. You know, you spent a lot of time building them.
And in my magical practice, if I'm doing magic in towards a certain direction, I want to make sure that my impact is aligned with my intent, because I'm doing magical work here.
Oh yeah, when it's amplified and
yeah. So it's my witchy ethics that I want to align those things, and so therefore for me it's my responsibility to do that work. And of course I'm human, and not everything is gonna. I just said I was a recovering perfectionist, and I think that it's my responsibility to do as much as I can, as it's humanly possible, in order to align those things.
Yeah, we can't control a lot. We can't control everything, but there are some things that we can be as mindful about as possible. You know, and so, and the more depth we get at understanding our beliefs and behaviors and fears and habits, then as we negotiate that, we can move away from these kind of knee-jerk responses and really live fully and authentically. You know, so this is great work. I mean, it's great work, and it's just amazing the impact that she has had. I think you had a note somewhere about her being a New York Times bestseller like 1 million times or something.
Yes, yeah, she's the author of 6 #1 New York Times bestsellers.
Yeah. I mean, think about that. To be on the top of the New York Times best-selling list. That means, I know whether they're actually implementing it is up to them, but they're buying the book. Yeah. So that's a great deal of impact. That's huge.
And she has podcasts.
That has been my greatest experience with her. Has been her podcast. Okay. Yeah.
I love that, and that makes it accessible in a whole other way.
Because there are people who are not going to read the book, or I don't know why not, but I guess there are people who don't, whatever. That's not their jam. But the podcast, they're very digestible, and she'll get the thing that she had another podcast, I think. I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, she's had, from what I know, she's had 2 podcasts.
And that one was more her. The one that she has now is a lot of guests, and that's great too. But I want more her.
Yeah, she's had Unlocking Us and Dare to Lead podcast.
Yeah, Dare to Lead. Yeah, the newest one is Unlocking Us, and it's great. And she gets some wonderful guests on, and I want more of her. I want to do like a huge check-in, and then have like a little bit of guests, and then then you have a little bit more like summation. Yeah,
more Brene Brown.
More Brene Brown. Yeah.
So the next section that I have for us to talk about is, to quote myself, shit that blew my mind and changed my life.
So let's have at it. You want to start or shall I?
Oh, would you be down to start?
Sure. So I mentioned that the books had a lot of impact on me, but what I find, and we talk about this a lot in our circle, is that our knowledge is spiral. So you can come back to the same lesson, but because you're further along the path, it's going to hit you in a different way, and usually deeper, and with hopefully deeper, and move you further along the path. So, like I said, I'd read Braving the Wilderness when it came out, which was 2017, I think. But rereading it this past week was kind of eye-opening for me, and I'd like to just read. So this is so Braving the Wilderness. The main focus of this is about she said that we're hardwired as humans to find our people, to find our tribe, and we want to be a part of this tribe. And she, when it's done beautifully and authentically, she calls it braving the wilderness, but she calls it belonging, true belonging. But what most of us do is fit in. And that's where we change who we are so we can be what other people are, just so that they will like us and let us be a part of their group. So I want to say that because this is a quote from Braving the Wilderness. True belonging requires us to believe in and belong to ourselves so fully that we can find sacredness both in being a part of something and in standing alone when necessary. That's the part that broke my heart. But in a culture that's rife with perfectionism and pleasing, and with the erosion of civility, it's easy to stay quiet, hide in our ideological bunkers, or fit in rather than show up as our true selves and brave the wilderness of uncertainty and criticism. But true belonging is not something we negotiate or accomplish with others. It's a daily practice that demands integrity and authenticity. It's a personal commitment that we carry in our hearts. And what struck me about that was that I would say out of 64 years, I spent a good 40 of them trying to fit in. Mm-hmm. And I just think of, and there's chapters on this, and each chapter it's like, oh, okay, that's me. Oh, that's me too. Oh, that's me. Dang, girl. But the things that I did so that I could get that little bit of approval, or not approval, but people would let me hang on to their little group, or you can be a part of us, but it was very precarious, right? Because just as it took forever and basically smashing your self-value to nothing so that you can take those little shards and crumbs and build up what they wanted. You're always dependent on what they want, and that can change, or you can show a little part of yourself that's not what they want. So it's such a precarious position. So it takes you forever to get there, and then when you're there, you're never secure. It's not like you even enjoy, or maybe people do, but I think back and I didn't even really enjoy fitting in because I wasn't really there. I wasn't. That's it. Mm-hmm. I was not there. Mm-hmm. And so reading this book in 2017, 2018, whatever, it just highlighted for me, and I had started, and the reason it hit was because I had started doing that work, mm-hmm. right? We had done our priestess apprenticeship, and mm-hmm. I had done the work with the other woman who told me to say no to everything. And so I started doing this work and thinking about myself as valuable. And so it came at a wonderful time where I was ready to hear the lesson. And she made sure I heard that lesson. That lesson gonged around me for months. And I just that not necessarily just that little paragraph, but that's the one that I keep coming back to again and again. True belonging. Anyway.
And for me, like I'm hearing you say that, and when I read the book, that really deeply resonated with me. And I want to commit to that. And it's something that it's like, it's not something that I'm going to do and then check off my list and be like, okay, now I'm doing different work.
No,
it's like every single gosh darn day, am I fitting in right now, or am I belonging to myself, to my coworkers, to my circle, to my partner? Like I see all of the ways that I choose to slip away from myself.
So here's how about we think about it this way. We get the choice to choose. We get the opportunity to choose that. Mm-hmm. I don't know, every 2 or 3 minutes every day, right?
Right?
Like, woohoo!
Well, and I'm thinking like I scroll through social media. So this is a brand new thought for me, but like I scroll through social media, like, do I really need the newest eye cream? Because, it'll make me look younger, and therefore people will like me more, or I'll be sexier to my part. Like, I'm turning 40 this month. Like, I'm going to have some crow's feet,
Yeah.
And I'm not dissing anybody who wants to get rid of their crow's feet or anything like that. Yeah. But like for me, it's checking in with like, what is my intent? Is my intent to change myself so that I'm more likable? Or is my intent to be who I want to be? And maybe that me doesn't have crow's feet. I don't know. Like, my judgment is not on the crow's feet, or my judgment is not on the clothes that are being marketed to me. It's the intent. Well, now we're going back to what we talked about before. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Intent versus impact, right?
Yeah. What does Leilani, the true core Leilani, want and need to live her fullest life? And
maybe it is that eye cream. Maybe it is that there's this really cute like jumpsuit that I'm looking at right now.
But you're thinking about it. You're aware that that choice is not just the choice to buy that jumpsuit. Mm-hmm. That choice is, how am I thinking about this jumpsuit? Is this, so it's that awareness that surrounds it, that gives you a moment to stop and make an intentional, meaningful choice, as opposed to just kind of knee jerking. Oh, that's cute, I'm gonna buy it.
Right. And like, why do I want to go to this party and or gathering or whatever? Is it to connect with people? Is it because the cool people are going and I want to like fit in with them? Like what is it? And in some ways it feels like a lot of responsibility, but I can flip that and say it's really a lot of empowerment.
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, yeah, we if you don't choose to take the responsibility, life might be simpler and easier, but it's not going to be better. Right? Mm-hmm. It'll be simpler, it'll be easier. It might be good, but I'm convinced that what we're doing makes a better, juicier, present, lived experience.
I love that word, juicier. Like, I want to live a juicy life. I want to have like these delectable moments, like I shared in my check-in, where I'm a part of something that's bigger than me. I'm a part of creating something.
And you're aware of that creation in the moment, not later. Oh, yeah, that was a nice moment. No, at that time.
And I think this isn't, I'm not sure that this was in that book. It's woven throughout a lot of her books, but she talks about how having gratitude, because joy is fleeting, right?
Yes.
Like, we feel that joy. Yes. So for example, I do that skill for the first time. Wow. Joy is fleeting. I look back at some of the dance competitions and I see that I won, that I placed. And then I'm like, I can't even remember what I placed, or for what I placed. Yes. Was that the Jack and Jill, or was that a Strictly competition, or like, was that Pro-Am? Like, I don't, right. So joy is fleeting, then we want more of it. But what actually sticks with us is gratitude.
Yeah. Yeah. And she talks about that a lot. And in fact, can we talk a little bit about the gifts of imperfection?
Please.
So one of the things that struck me, and I actually typed it out in our outline. What happened was, I found it again. I think I actually had written notes in a journal, and so I found it, but then I found like a better version because they were not complete. But she has the 10 guideposts for wholehearted living, and the idea being is that the people that she knows or she's interviewed or whatever who live wholeheartedly, they practice in some sort of way these to greater or lesser extent, depending on the person, these 10 guideposts, and I'd like to read them if I may.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, but I don't want to just read them. I want to
Okay.
maybe we could have a brief
Okay.
chat.
Sure.
Because I know there's 10 of them, so I don't want to talk about them for an hour. But
exactly. And in fact, what's so funny about them is when did the Gifts of Imperfection come out? That was a while ago. Right?
It was, yes, but it was after
Daring Greatly.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. But so I must have read it because anyway, it doesn't matter. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make is that so many of these resonate for us because we've either already talked about them in our podcast, or there's some of the values that we've been kind of skirting around and we haven't maybe yet talked about. Mm-hmm. So I think that's one of the things that I found fascinating, because I think the very first one was our very first episode.
Tell me you're a Brene Brown fan without telling me you're a Brene Brown fan. Episode 1, Living Authentic Lives.
So it's called, number 1 is cultivating authenticity, letting go of what people think. We've circled back to that one a couple of times, I think.
Go re-listen to episode 1, Leilani. All right.
No, but it's that is it was an ultimate for me, and it's and I'm not there yet, but I'm chipping away at it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Same.
So number 2 is cultivating self-compassion, letting go of perfectionism. Yeah.
Well, and Brene Brown is the one who really opened up my eyes to the fact that perfectionism is not necessarily a good thing. Mm-hmm. Like, I thought, perfectionism, y'all, I'm a perfectionist. Yes. I just, want to be perfect. I, strive.
It's a goal.
I'm an overachiever. That's how I viewed it. But when I listened to her, I was like, perfectionism is self-destructive behavior.
Like, for example, one of the things we were talking about data, and I think she talks about this in Braving the Wilderness. That can be, data's a great thing, but it can also be a way of armoring yourself so that you don't have to be vulnerable, mm-hmm, right? Mm-hmm. You can go for the understand, okay, this is what I'm like, and I understand myself, etc., as opposed to sitting in the feeling. Mm-hmm, so mm-hmm. The understanding versus feeling, I think is how she put it.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so, yeah.
I do that.
So okay.
Step one is freak out and have my life spontaneously combust. Step 2, let me gather some data and research about said spontaneous combustion. And then step 3 is whenever I have that availability and space in my heart and mind, then I can allow myself to begin the work. Oh. But I'm like a beaver, grabbing wood and dragging it towards the dam, And then whenever I have my supplies, then I can
I can relax.
I can sit in there and
if you ever can
figure out the dam.
If you ever
because damn.
Yes, exactly. So that's number 2. Number 3 is cultivating a resilient spirit, letting go of numbing and powerlessness. And she spends a lot of time on that in Daring Greatly, because the idea of people, you're going to go through these experiences of shame, but she calls it shame resilience, mm-hmm, where, how do you negotiate that? I think she mentions for a number of years, she numbed out and, she drank, she smoked, she got involved in her research and, in a number of different ways. And I do that too.
She's in recovery. I just want to point that out to our listeners.
She
totally is a recovering alcoholic, mm-hmm, and I love that she shares that.
Yes. One of the things that in Braving the Wilderness she talks about is how she went to AA and they said that she said, no, here's someone who is at the bottom and they're trying their best to claw their way out. And she goes to AA and they say, you don't really belong here. You're not our thing. You know what I mean? And then so they sent her to maybe Overeaters Anonymous or something. So she went there and they said she didn't belong there. She said, how shitty is that? Here you are. You're trying to find a program to help you,
right? And
people are the one, and the reason that you're doing all this stuff is because you don't feel like you belong,
right?
And then you go to they say you do us because you can't do it. You can't, mm-hmm, do it anymore. You just, mm-hmm, can't. There, no one else will help. So you go to the place where when everything else fails, you can go to them, and they say,
I like she. This is an image of she shows up and as somebody who has gone to things like that, mm-hmm, right? Mm-hmm. Me showing up is an act of vulnerability.
Oh my gosh,
courage.
yes.
I cannot imagine what it would be like to show up and then be turned away.
Yeah.
They turned away a shame researcher. Like, she would become a shame researcher. Like,
yeah.
Can you imagine the person that's like, I turned Brene Brown on?
I know. Like, what was I thinking? Yeah, she could have been a part of my group. I could have been her mentor. So yeah. So a lot of, I mean, that and one of the things that we've learned in our circle is numbing. You know, people think of alcohol or drugs or food, but there's your phone. There's
technology, exercise.
There's anything could be a numbing. You know, it's a matter of not necessarily even quantity, but how you're using it.
It's intent.
Intent. Exactly. So that's number 3. Number 4 is cultivating gratitude and joy, letting go of scarcity and fear of the dark. And you've started talking about that, and that's just okay. We don't spend but still, that idea of recognizing the abundance around you, not saying that there's more abundance than really is there, but recognizing that there is abundance. So for me, I like, as you look around my cluttered room, I could say, oh, I really, really need to declutter. Well, okay, the upside of that is I have all these wonderful things that, I have to figure out where they go. Or do I really need this wonderful thing, right? But I have a lot of wonderful things, and that's,
I see I see creativity. I see creative projects. I see you have shelves full of essential oils. I see tools for healing. I can't tell you the number of times you've given me oils whenever I mention something in passing, not even with the intent of getting an oil from you. I'm just like, oh yeah, this is happening, and you're like, oh hey, and you reach over and you grab it. To me, that wouldn't be available if it weren't for all of this abundance. And look at that yarn.
Yes. So yeah, okay, thank you. But that's again another. I mean, but that's again being aware and being intentional, just looking around and how are you going to couch that? How are you going to phrase that? So thank you. Cultivating intuition and trusting faith, letting go of the need for certainty.
Yeah, that's a lifelong practice for me.
Yes. And the beauty of this is most of these things are issues that she's dealt with too. And that's what makes her so real, is that it's not just the research and the data, but she can pull out a number of illustrations from her own life. So she lives this stuff. Cultivating creativity, letting go of comparison. I'm still working through that. I'm getting better. But that idea where just do it and not worry about, is it good enough or whatever.
Comparison is hard for me. As like a woman who I'm not married. I'm almost 40. I'm not married. I don't have children. I don't practice I don't practice one of the major religions in the United States. There's just a lot about me that's different. And I struggle with that.
Yeah.
I'm not where people say I should be. I'm not doing what our overarching culture, says in a lot of different ways. So I rub against that a lot.
Yeah, and and this probably may not help, but from where I'm sitting, you make it look fabulous. I just you're totally not these things, and that's this bright, shiny, gorgeous thing that again, if you're looking at what other people are, I can see where the comparison, or if they're looking at what other people are,
that also
I can see
rough.
where the comparison is. But you're fabulous. Okay, number 4. Where was I? 6. 7, cultivating play and rest, letting go of exhaustion as a status symbol, and productivity as self-worth. Hallelujah. We talked about that. Yes.
Oh my gosh. And I'm just going to do an aside real quick. She blew my mind. I was reading Atlas of the Heart, and she was talking about, so I didn't realize she struggled with anxiety until I read Atlas of the Heart. And again, this is something you mentioned. Maybe it's because I'm in a place in my life where, maybe I just didn't click with me. But she mentioned that she gave up caffeine.
Oh,
I know. And I'm like, my homegirl also gave up caffeine.
Yeah.
Like, me too. And then she also mentioned that she makes sure she gets a certain amount of sleep every night. Or she shoots to get a certain amount of sleep every night. And I'm constantly seeing this culture, this grind culture, where if you're not tired, nobody ever sits down and says, I am so well rested. Oh, Everyone sits down and says, I am exhausted. I am working so hard. Stuff at home is so rough. No one ever says.
I got 3 hours of sleep.
Yeah, I only got 3 hours of sleep because I was up doing this or this thing. And oh my gosh, like, when am I going to fit it all in? I don't even, nobody is ever like, I really cleaned out my schedule this week, so I'm just going to do a lot of relaxing. I slept so well last night.
Going to sit on my fat, happy ass and watch me some White Lotus.
Do you feel so? I feel so refreshed.
Yes.
No,
that's not the conversation.
No, that's not the way that it goes.
Yes, it's not. So, yeah. And we talked about that in episode, the play episode.
Oh, the magical power of play?
Magic power of play, yes.
That was a fun episode.
It was a fun episode.
Look, we're so Brene Brownie.
That's what I'm saying. This is, the ones that we haven't covered should be on our list for things to do.
You know how Taylor Swift fans are called Swifties?
Yeah,
and Justin Bieber fans are called Believers?
Believers, yeah.
Maybe Brene Brown fans should be called Brownies. And because we're witches, we're magic brownies.
We're magic brownies! I like that. We'll start the Magic Brownie Club.
Magic Brownie Club.
I'll be the president. You can be the treasurer.
Some people are going to show up to our meeting thinking it's something else.
That's okay. We'll move over to our... Well, there's no reason why it can't be both.
Right?
Well, except we're in Texas, so I guess there is a reason.
Yes.
Anyway, let's move on. Episode 8, Cultivating Calm and Stillness. Letting go of anxiety as a lifestyle. Mm-hmm. Again, that kind of resonates with the previous one. But that idea... that it's going to cause anxiety. The fact that people don't have anxiety is actually rare, right? So, okay, moving on. Number 9, cultivating meaningful work, letting go of self-doubt and supposed to. There's a saying that I've heard a lot of times. It uses the word should. It says don't should on yourself. And those shoulds. I used to have a screensaver back in my Dell days. I had a screensaver that would say no shoulds, because it's just that is such a marker of my life. Is I should be doing this, I should be doing that, and just kind of giving that up. So anyway,
we read my favorite poem is Marge Piercy's To Be of Use.
Yes.
And that's what she talks about in that poem. That's my favorite poem of all time. I love that poem.
I remember. Okay, so going on to number 10, cultivating laughter, song, and dance. Woohoo! Letting go of being cool and always in control.
I do like being a fool.
Yes. A fool for spirit, a fool for music, a fool for dance.
I love laughter. I love singing. I love dancing. And like what I hear about laughter, song, and dance is letting go and just allowing joy and any sort of feeling to just flow through my body, which to me is incredibly witchy. Whenever we're in circle and we're energy raising, I'm not thinking like, I look like Kermit the Frog because I'm waving my arms in the air, like he does when he goes, like I look like an idiot. People are probably laughing at me. No, I'm thinking like I'm raising energy. I look across that circle, I see somebody else, and they're raising energy, and I'm like, we're raising energy and then we're drumming and we're dancing and we're moving and we're all doing it together. Some people are rolling around on the floor. Some people are standing on the chairs. Some people are clapping. Some people are crying. But like, we're all in it together, and I'm simultaneously very aware of everyone else and totally not aware.
Exactly. And if we are looking at each other, what we're seeing is like, oh, okay, more energy's coming at me. So it's not like, oh, she looks silly or whatever. What the hell? We ain't got time for that.
Nope. Ain't nobody got time for that in circle.
Exactly. We're too busy doing some stuff, and that's because we're letting go. And we're not trying to make it something. Like sometimes every once in a while with energy, we'll try to, bring the energy level up a little bit. But that's about the energy. That's not about what we're looking like or that sort of thing. So, yeah.
Yeah.
So, anyway, these are from the Gifts of Imperfection. Highly so we can highly recommend all her books, obviously.
Yeah.
But definitely that idea of letting go of the fake belief that you can control your life, and embracing the joy and the miracle of not doing that, of recognizing that you can't, and then resting and sitting in that uncertainty and sitting in in the belief and the trust that the energy's got your, the universe has got your back.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about.
Can I share my favorite?
Yeah, because we just spent a whole lot of time on mine.
So my favorite. Well, I love all of it, so it's not.
Of course,
It's not hard to do that. So my favorite thing that I keep coming back to over and over and over again is Daring Greatly. So a little side note about. So she talks about Roosevelt's quotation that he said in a speech. So I love it. Just a little side note, because I have it on my wall in my office as well as in my home office. But he uses a lot of like male. He uses all male pronouns and stuff. So like I changed it in my office because it just like kind of throws off my groove. No hate towards Brene Brown. Like she's quoting him, and it was definitely written in a different time. So, but I'm gonna read it. I'm gonna change the pronouns and stuff because I just like the way it lands better. So this is from his speech in The Man in the Arena. It is not the critic who counts, not the person who points out how the strong one stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the one who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again because there is no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends themselves in a worthy cause, who is at best in the end the triumph of I'm like about ready to cry. Okay.
That's okay. You can do this, baby.
Who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if they fail, at least fails while daring greatly. I just get all like emotional and stuff about it.
It's wondrous. I played it. I told you I listened to the audiobook, and I played that at least 3 or 4 times. It's just and it's Teddy Roosevelt, who is not necessarily I think he's done a lot of stuff like with the national parks, etc. But he's kind of that big stick guy, and
yeah.
So I don't necessarily resonate with a lot of Teddy Roosevelt, but I think he was spot on with this.
I agree. I cannot even count the number of times in my life where I have felt like I have been face down in the arena. With like horses stampeding over me, and I'm like bloody and dirty and like I'm like meh, and I like get up and I'm like, well, I'm in the arena, and there have been so many times in my life where I have thought that to myself, you know what? This sucks, but I'm in the arena, and that's
you got back up,
and that's where I want to be. Like I want to be in the arena. I want to die knowing that I was in the arena. Even when it was hard. At least I'm in the arena and I'm trying.
Yeah.
Because there are a hell of a lot of people sitting around spectating and, armchair quarterbacking.
Eating their bonbons and saying, oh, you should have done that. Yep. There's a Chinese, I forget the term, not mantra, a Chinese thing, saying, knock down 77 times, stand up 78. I'll try to get the real one.
Right? Is it knock down 3,247 times?
I get it, 3,004.
It feels like.
Yeah. But yeah, you can do multiples of 77, I would imagine. But the idea of resilience is not that you are this superpower or that you're this special hero. It's just that something shitty happens to you. And you sit in it, and you figure out what you can learn from it, and then you just move on. And sometimes you do it with a great deal of grace. Most times you probably won't.
Yeah.
But you move on, and hopefully grow from it, and not let it oppress you. Like it's bad enough that it happened, but then don't let it keep happening by drawing on that energy again and again, seeing what of it you can leave behind. And I think so much of her books are about that. Sitting in it and saying, okay, I'm sitting in shit. And now what? And she gives you the tool for the now what. But you got to say, I'm sitting in shit first.
Right. Yeah. and that's the thing with the person in the arena is they get up,
They get up.
And they may be marred, they may be bloody, but they get up. And that's one of the things that I find really interesting. And I wasn't prepared to talk about this, but I do want to just mention, like, I do find that really interesting because I think our culture has this stereotype of the witch as being this, like, angry, dark, depressed person.
Oh, yeah. Yes, very dark.
The Nancy on...
the gothy.
The Nancy on The Craft, you know. And of course, like, there are as many types of witches as there are witches, And I just, that type of showing up in life is, like, not compatible with my view of what witchcraft means.
Right.
Because like, I am charged with I think a sacred calling of being that person in the arena and doing that deep shadow work and then moving forward, even though I fall down face first over and over and over again. Right.
And I think it's harder to maintain that anger when we recognize that we're all a part of the same ecosystem, right? Because that anger is often, I'm not saying that that's necessarily the case always, but it's often this anger against something that's outside of me that's controlling me or doing something to me or myself, whatever. But when we recognize that, it might be something that's not necessarily in your skin, but we're all connected. We're like those mushrooms, we're all connected.
Oof, yeah.
Yeah. It's easy. That might be helpful for some people in working their way through whatever that, the source of that anger might be.
I love this. I love that quote from Roosevelt, and I think about it, especially when I'm on the arena floor, face first. I think about it a lot.
There's some more stuff that you.
Yes,
you have quite. You have.
I do.
A plethora of.
Can we? So speaking of, like, branching off of this, the one in the arena, but her concept about. So I'm in the arena, right? And I remember the first ritual that I priestessed while I was completing my apprenticeship for our circle. Whoo, doggies, did I have a vulnerability hangover? Like, I am in the arena, right?
Could you refresh my memory?
Yes. So, like, I'm in the arena, and I am daring greatly. Like, I am showing up. I feel terrified. I feel excited. I've been training for this. The circle is, like, putting their belief in me that, like, we are supporting you. We are helping build this energy for you to, serve our circle with this priestessing. And I'm, like, terrified and like excited, and, like, I'm feeling all of these things. And then I priestess the ritual, and for all accounts it goes well. I go home and I have the biggest vulnerability hangover that I've ever had. And so vulnerability hangovers are what Brene is. I believe Brene Brown coined that term, but it's this idea that it's a cycle where we do this scary thing and then we get self-conscious or scared about it, and then we create these like dread and these feelings of, like, worry because I extended myself, I put myself out there, and then I have all of these feelings of, like, self-consciousness about the fact that I put myself out there. And so then it's like this hangover that happens after this experience of vulnerability. And, like, I get them so much. It doesn't matter how many years I've been, we're coming up on, like, 10 years, and I still get them. And the bigger the risk, the bigger the vulnerability hangover for me.
Wow. So what do you do? How do you work your way through them? Or do you work your way through them?
I have to work my way through them, or I guess I don't have to. I could just sit in it and it'd be shitty.
Or you can ignore it, right? You can push it away. You could, go on your social media or,
But for me, I choose to work through them. The place I normally go to first is that I'm going to be kicked out of our circle. That's normally where it starts. I'm like, oh my God, people are going to realize that what I did was horrible or inappropriate or very bad or out of alignment with our agreements or generally sucky, and they're not going to want me around, and they're going to kick me out, and I'm going to be all alone, like going back to, like, our talk about, like, wanting to be, included and fitting in, So that's normally where it starts. And then from there, I spiral into like, I'm horrible. I can't priestess. I'm never going to be good at this.
Wow.
Like, this is just so bad. Why did I make this ritual? That was so stupid. That was the stupidest ritual. That didn't even go the way, like, I just like, I can't believe I did this. I should have priestessed it differently. Well, did I even priestess? I'm like the worst priestess ever.
Oh my God,
like,
so
I don't even call myself, like, you shouldn't even call yourself a priestess. Like, this is just, like, that's my cycle. And then I once I realize what's happening, and as the years have passed, I've gotten better at realizing what's happening. And then I remind myself, I think the biggest tool is just reminding myself, this is a vulnerability hangover. You were just really vulnerable.
Gotcha. Okay. So I would imagine just the knowledge of that helps, because you're not, I would imagine that as you're going through that there's also the anxiety about going through that too. Mm-hmm. Like, how is this going to be permanent? Am I going to feel like this the rest of... Wow.
So recognizing that I'm having a vulnerability hangover, sometimes I can reach out to somebody and just say like, hey, I'm really struggling right now. Mm-hmm. Like, can you just verify that like things are okay?
Talk you down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
you could call me. You could call me.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to make it someone's responsibility to talk me off the cliff, but just to remind me that I don't need to be on that cliff.
Yeah.
You know? Mm-hmm. Because I do want feedback. Obviously, if I did something that was inappropriate, I would want that feedback. Mm-hmm. And I don't need someone to just tell me that my farts don't stink. Mm-hmm. But I do, it is nice to have someone be like, yeah, like, it was good. Like, we're good. We're all good. You really did put yourself out there. I see why you're like feeling the woo-woos, Yeah.
Because
like, that's helpful.
The further you go out, then the further like the drop.
Yeah.
Wow. So you had gone through this before you knew what it was?
Yes. So I had been going through this, and then a couple years into priestessing, then I read the book, and then I learned about vulnerability hangover, and then I realized what I was having.
Wow.
Yeah. It's really transformed. And I do it too, like, even so I'm turning 40 in like a couple of weeks, and I'm having like a small get together. Okay, I'm actually having a phone party.
I know.
Well,
it's gonna be fabulous.
But like, I just invited a small group of people. But even something as simple as like, as simple as turning my garage into a foam pit. I realize how silly that sounds, but like,
okay.
But even something as simple as like, I'm having a small party with just a handful of people who are going to come over and get silly and have fun with me. Mm-hmm. Which now that I'm saying this, like, is very Brene Browny, right?
Yeah. Yes, very much.
Like, just like silliness and joy and like laughter, and just do something silly. Like I'm already experiencing a vulnerability hangover.
Whoa.
Because I'm doing something, like I'm not going out to dinner.
You're not doing the normal thing.
A normal thing, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I'm turning my garage into a giant aquarium and filling it with foam. And lights, and asking people to come dance and be silly. But like, I'm already experiencing this, like, what if people think it's stupid? What if nobody shows up? What if everybody shows up? What if some people show up and don't like other people that are there? Maybe I should only invite my witchy friends. No, maybe I should only invite this circle. But I made the choice to invite a couple of different, like, inspired by you and your party. Mm-hmm. You had a birthday party, and it was a
60th, I think.
Okay, I think it was, yeah. And then, and you invited people from different circles, and you were like, fuck it.
It'll happen or it won't. But
right.
Going to dance, it's so hard. I mean, if you have dancing, it's hard for people to be like assholes, right?
Right.
I mean, they can be if they really, it's a talent.
People can achieve if they believe, right?
Exactly. But most, once my friends get on the dance floor, it's like, oh no, we got to be doing that. And I think that's going to be the case. I mean, I'm looking forward to it.
I sure hope so.
I'm coming after the symphony, so I'll have to, like, strip down and put on some.
I love that about you. I love that that's your life. That you're going to go to the symphony, and then you're going to come to my 40th phone party.
It's going to be fabulous.
Look at the life you live.
I know. It's a wonderful thing, and I have moments of gratitude for that.
I want to just reflect this back to you.
Thank you. Yeah, well, you're making it happen. I mean, you're the one who's allowing me to have these different facets, so...
In my higher moments, I feel that way. In my more vulnerable moments, in my shakier moments, I slip into that vulnerability. And it's not even a vulnerability hangover. What happens beforehand?
A vulnerability No.
I don't know.
Foreplay. Vulnerability foreplay. So here's the thing. But and that happens because you're being super authentic. You're being super authentic. You're doing, like you said, how many people say, okay, I'm turning 40, let's have a phone party, right? So you're doing something that's so unusual, and that's why you have doubts, because why am I the only one doing this? Why is no one else doing it? Because they're not like a fucking fabulous Leilani, right? So that's part of the, maybe it's not foreplay, but it's like the vulnerability preparation, like your preparation V. You're like, you know what I mean? You're like getting ready for the vulnerability.
Yeah, it's like anticipatory. It certainly is anticipatory, for sure. Okay, thank you for that feedback. So what I'm noticing, I'm processing this in real time. What I'm noticing is whenever I'm getting this anticipatory vulnerability hangover, right? So that's cluing me in. So what I can do is I can use that as information to clue me into the fact that, okay, like what I am doing is vulnerable, or it will be vulnerable. What I'm preparing to do is vulnerable. And that's why I'm having these feelings. Okay, thank you. Thank you. That's a big learning for me. So instead I can use that as almost like a, I'm seeing it, the thing that popped into my mind is like a green light. Like I'm green lighting myself that I am in alignment with what I want, which is to be authentic to myself. And I want to fucking play.
Yeah, there you go.
When I turn 40, I want to be joyful and I want to play with people that I love. And that's vulnerable and scary.
Yeah. And I think the vulnerability preparation or whatever is just a way of reminding you, okay, this is me, this is who I am, and the messages I'm getting are to go out to dinner, which, by the way, you are going to get that.
Yeah, we are going out to dinner, and it's going to be lovely. No poo-poo.
No, I know that.
On like
I know
people
that.
like who want to
but you're getting like all the different ways of exploring your birthday. But this is one that's reflecting you. And of course, you're wondering, you know, when I show people who I am, will they like it?
Oh,
right?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, we're coming, so we must. or we're like, not sure what this is all about, but let's do it anyway, because it's Leilani and she's going to be fabulous. And so I think that's part of it, is that knowing you're about to expose, you're being super, super authentic in a way that's not just like woo. You're like woo, 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 right? Because it's not too many people do this. That I mean, you're the first person.
I don't know anybody who's.
So people must, because you showed me a YouTube video, so no one would have a YouTube video if no one was doing it.
Yeah, it's mostly frat boys.
And Leilani. There we go. Okay.
The antithesis of frat boy.
Okay.
Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. But I think that's a lot of it, is that you know that you're doing something that's truly you. And it's just, you know, there's always that fear, right? You know, so like, will people like the you?
Yeah, just like you said in the beginning, the fitting in versus
the
belonging,
true belonging,
right? And so I'm showing up as me, and I'm asking people to belong with me.
We'll be there.
Oh fuck.
Yeah. Particularly if you get those lights going.
Right.
Okay. Yes, but let's get back on task.
Well, thank you. Okay. Thank you. I mean, that's. I mean, I could talk about her for like a million hours.
Yeah.
But like, that was my biggest takeaway. And I just want to point out to our listeners, like, what we just did there is what my relationship with Brene Brown, which is like, I come back to the things that I've read before, and it lands differently. Like you said, totally. The spiraling, the upward spiral.
Yeah, I mean, and yes, we have that ability to she has a lesson, and then when we've evolved a little bit more, the lesson's going to help us to evolve even more. So we can take that lesson, being the better person that we are, the more evolved, the better developed, the better whatever, and we can still, that lesson's still valid. It's still viable, because all it does, all of her stuff just helps you to drop as much of the garbage as possible, shine yourself, you know, let it chip it away, so that more of you can be there. And until we're Buddha, we're going to continue to need her lessons, right? Until we're ready to drop this plane, which reminds me of episode different planes of existence. Yeah, exactly. So I think the beauty of it is that I don't see myself outgrowing her. She will always be there for me. And the beauty of it is that she doesn't lead from being in front. She leads from going through this too. And so that's one of the reasons why I really like going back to her.
I agree. Well, maybe we can go back to her instead of reading a poem. Maybe we could go back to her and read something that we both really liked?
Yeah, this is from her Daring Greatly, and I think it's the very end. It's like the summary. Okay, so I'll read a little bit. Okay. So this is Brene Brown, Daring Greatly. Daring greatly is not about winning or losing. It's about courage. In a world where scarcity and shame dominate and feeling afraid has become second nature, vulnerability is subversive.
Uncomfortable. It's even a little dangerous at times. And, without question, putting ourselves out there means there's a far greater risk of feeling hurt. But as I look back on my own life and what daring greatly has meant to me, I can honestly say that nothing is as uncomfortable, dangerous, and hurtful as believing that I'm standing on the outside of my life, looking in and wondering what it would be like if I had the courage to show up and let myself be seen.
So mote it be.
So mote it be. Mm-hmm. To our listeners, thank you for showing up and allowing yourself to be seen, even if it's just by us. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Witchy Wit. Mm-hmm. We hope you have enjoyed the magic that has unfolded here at Witchy Wit.
It would be great if you would help make Witchy Wit possible and get access to exclusive content by donating on Patreon.
We'd love it if you join our Witchy community and enjoy shareable content on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube.
Would you do us a big favor and support us by rating and reviewing us wherever you get your podcasts? It's free and helps witchy folks find us.
Feel free to email us at witchywitpodcast@gmail.com. We love to hear from our community. Reach out and let us know what's brewing in your cauldron.
New episodes are released every second and fourth Friday. Follow us on your favorite podcasting platform so our episodes go right to your playlist. You can listen as you ride your broom.
Stay witchy, y'all!